Session 1, the week of January 20 through January 26th. In general, how's everybody today?
Great.
Okay, we're going to go around the room today. You're going to state your name, and in a very short sentence, you're going to say, what's the most important thing to you today? What's your focus? John?
My focus is continuing to prospect and get 2 people into contract in the next 2 weeks.
And your name is?
John Wilson.
John Wilson. Sveta.
Mine is to learn something new.
And your name is?
Sveta.
I'm Kelly Grawunder. I would like to be able to get to my FHA refis.
That's your focus today. That's what's important to you. Okay? Lee.
I'm Lee. Is this for work?
It can be anything.
My focus is to get home and get my dog some medicine.
Did anybody hear that? Mm-hmm. Okay.
My name is Joan Clark, and my focus today is to learn more about the MLS system because I just picked up my card.
Yay. So that's your focus today. Cool. But you still took time out to be here.
I had a really good focus today. I'm Dan Bale, and I managed to pick up 3 pounds of side striped shrimp at Sagaya's that came in fresh, and my wife is really happy about that.
Yeah.
That's pretty important.
I made points.
Who gets to cook it?
Well, I have to cook it, but I still made the points.
Well, there you go. That's important. Most important thing to do today are the focus.
Awesome. Barbecued.
Yeah.
My name's Brett, and I'm working on a home inspection today.
All right. Most important is to focus on that. What time is that?
3.
3 o'clock. Okay. Do you do? How many inspections do you recommend to your buyer?
2.
They are.
Home inspection and follow-up to make sure it was done.
Okay. So the second one for the re-inspect. Okay. All right.
The seller's doing the HVAC already.
Seller did it. So that HVA person was working for who then, Brad?
The seller, but it was Malatka, so it's a good
Oh, Mutka.
Mutka.
So you trust him?
Yes.
Okay. I'll go with that. Okay. I don't trust anybody. Okay.
So the question was, what are we focusing
What's
on?
your important focus today?
I'm going to be handing out more business cards.
To us?
Oh, no. Are
Good. We don't want them.
No, but the focus today here,
In general.
to listen about how important relationships are.
Excellent.
And try
Yeah.
to establish them.
Yeah, we're really pleased that Kelly agreed to do that.
My focus today is to move 2 of my prospects a little bit further towards being into contract.
How will you do that?
Well, one, I needed to provide information to one, which I gathered the information and have already did that so far today. They were extremely pleased and have gotten them a lot more excited and moving forward. The second
Good,
one
good,
is
good.
Doing a follow-up contact to see if the properties that we're potentially going to go look at are fitting his needs, wants, and goals.
Very good. What's the first thing that we do before we show a piece of property? Anybody?
The buyers,
AREC the client.
ARAC and also make sure that they're qualified for what they're doing and everything's in their goals.
Good answer. What was your?
the buyers meeting?
Oh yeah, buyer's meeting. Okay. Let's assume you're behind. I'll get to you in a minute. Let's assume all of that's behind you. What's the most important thing you should do before you show a property, Lee?
Make sure it's still available.
Yes, ma'am. Make sure it's still available. Call the seller. Ask if the property, not the seller, excuse me. Call the listing realtor. Ask if it's still available. We also like to ask if they're expecting any offers. Because if you're going to get into a multiple offer situation, you want to know right away. And I also like to ask if they've had any offers on the property. The more questions you ask, the more you're going to get to know, and the more you can help your buyer. All right, what's the most important focus for you today?
I'm helping my 3 borrowers get pre-qualified.
Is
That
that
are coming in this afternoon.
3 new pre-quals? Whoa! Where are they coming
Yeah.
from?
Alaska Housing.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
And your name is?
Chris Hughes, sorry.
Chris, okay. All right, let's look at our points real quick. Sorry, guys. Oh, okay. The question is, we want to know your name again for the 10th time.
Dan Lackey.
All right, and Dan, we want to know what your most important focus is today.
Today, make sure I get all my paperwork done for my business license. I forgot to do it for some reason. I got to get that done, and I got to go around and make sure all my business cards are still there at certain locations. So yeah, one of the locations, like I guess all my business cards just disappeared, like 50 of them. So
Probably a realtor did that, don't you think?
I was on base, so I'm
Oh.
not sure if they
Probably.
did or not. If they did,
I think there might be some restrictions actually having your business cards there. Is that possible?
maybe that's why I need to go and check on that today.
Good focus. All right, let's look at our team points. And I can tell you right now that Team 3 is winning with 774 points. The team captain is John Wilson. Team members are Lee, Chris, Willie, Elisa Bell, and Carla Steffen.
John could be winning without a team.
Oh, I know. It's
We should make a team 4.
we should, shouldn't we? Give him some serious competition. Like my husband. My husband is very good at Trivial Pursuit. He's just one of these people that remembers the most insignificant things that have nothing to do with life, really. But I think he watches these. I have to be careful what I say. But so what we do is on the holidays, 7 of us will gang up against him and play Trivial Pursuit. And that's about the only way we ever win. It's amazing what he remembers. Yeah. Anyway, so we have John with 405 points, 345 prospect calls, and 22 business cards he's handed out. And our second high point getter is Chris with 162 business cards. Is that from Alaska Housing, pretty much?
That is going out and meeting new agents.
Whoa.
Chamber events.
Okay. Kelly, I want to thank you for your generosity in letting Chris come here. We appreciate it. Kelly allowed that. So, and then Chris has 38 prospect calls as well. So, and your prospects are realtors, I'm thinking, right?
Yes.
Right. Good job. And our second place team is Brad's team with 275 points, and our top point getter is Kelly again with 35 business cards. And Kelly, where do you hand out your business cards? Did I do it wrong? No, it's you, my dear.
Oh, okay. B&I,
What's that again?
my business network group.
Woo! Okay. Are they the people that meet at 6 in the morning or something like that?
7:30.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you deserve points for that. 35 business cards for Kelly and 17 new pre-quals. And then the second point getter is myself. Oh, Kelly, you and I are tied, by the way. We each have 76 points. Mine are from 24 business cards, and I've worn my name tag 19 times in this session. So don't forget to wear your name tag. Lisa was wearing hers the other day in the hallway. I was so impressed.
Count every day?
Every single day, yeah, right. Every day you wear a name tag. Oh, oh yeah.
If you go to special events.
No, every single day. If you wear them on your pajamas at night, that counts.
Mine is 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of ours are. Most of us are working 7 days. Yeah, so you have time to revise your points. Can we allow point revision on name tags, people?
Then I have a question. I got this form online the other day, and how are you supposed to change anything on that? I mean,
Print it out and change it.
and-
Yeah.
And bring it in?
It doesn't auto-pop. Yeah, you print it out, bring it in, and give it to Lee. And in a perfect world,
Write on there and give it to me too.
Okay.
I'll have extra ones of these that you can just.
And then the one you sent online didn't even have my name on it, so I wasn't.
it's a blank.
I know.
It's a blank. She sends those to everybody. You weren't so special that you're the only one that got it. Everybody got it.
It's on the
Yours
list.
didn't have your name on here at all?
Yeah, on the blank ones, it does on the,
Oh.
this one.
It's
so
on here,
got
but
messed
it
on
wasn't
the-
on the email one.
Do you have a
Oh, okay.
scanner?
Santa, yes, Santa.
No, she said
No, do you have
scanner.
a scanner?
Hmm?
Do you have a scanner?
No.
You can also save it under a different name, and then you can just type it right into the program and then print
Email it back.
or email it.
Alrighty. So we have that fixed, don't we, Dan? Okay. And our third place team with Sveta as our captain has 230 points. Our high point getter is Melanie, 68 business cards, 40 prospect calls. And our second highest is Sveta, 21 business cards, 10 times she wore her name tag, 47 points. So good. We We have quite a bit of time for the teams to change their position. Do I have one success story today? You guys look a little wasted. Is it from the party the other night? Did y'all have a good time? Wasn't that fun? Isn't that a beautiful party?
Fantastic. It was so nice. My husband had an opportunity to wear a suit.
Yeah, some of these realtors, I know your husband's probably not a realtor, but we see each other during the day or in the field, and it's really cool to see people clean up and, yeah, shave, bathe.
I thought it was one of the nicest that I've been to.
Really? In what way, Kelly?
I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out. I think that some people that might have been there in the past that might have been little troublemakers aren't there anymore.
They're at a different company, starving.
I don't know, but the atmosphere was different. It was pleasant. It was amiable. I don't know.
I like the live band. We haven't always had a live band. I like the live band. Yeah, I remember seeing you all there. I remember seeing John there. That was your wife you were with, I'm assuming? Okay, you looked really pretty that day, by the way, that night. Yeah, I love men to get all dressed up, and I think they look pretty when they're all dressed up. So any success stories, anybody? At least one. Chris, you must have one for us. You're on a roll. You've got all these prospects. Where did these prospects? Oh, you told us. Any success stories, anything, anybody you called that you didn't expect to materialize as a prospect?
Yeah, I met an agent at an Alaska housing event from a different company, and we traded business cards, and I didn't think anything else of it. And Monday, he sent me 2 referrals out of the blue, texted me and asked me if I was busy, and I'm like, no, never too busy to help you. And so I ended up getting 2 referrals from him. That was pretty cool.
That's amazing. Sometimes you never know where it's going to come from. Any field problems? Anybody having a problem that we can solve for you? Okay. All right. Well, Kelly is going to be our presenter today. It's all about teamwork, licensee loan originator relationships. And I think we talked about 10 important need to know. And yeah, okay. Kelly, I'm going to let you stand up here with the microphone, and I'm going to take your place up over there. And for new licensees, the relationship between your loan originator and the title company and you is going to make or break your business. So we're always nice to these people.
Has your husband read the book Michael Keynes? Things that most people don't know or want to.
More info for
I
the
think
trivia.
then we'll have to have 10 people gang up
That's
on
like
him.
my favorite book.
Oh, seriously? That's good to know. Thanks for that, Brad.
Birthday present.
First of all, if y'all have any questions as we're going along, please don't hesitate to just pop up and ask them. When Kathy asked me to do this, we were kind of put our heads together, and immediately I thought, I know several that we could use, letting you guys know just a little bit that when we're trying to meet your timelines of 30 days for closing, or 45, whatever it is, if we get things in timely manners, it's man hours that is taking this information and taking the next step and doing whatever it is we need from you to either get to processing or to underwriting or to my closer. And so some of these things, and if you have any other ideas, just pop up too. One of them is when when you're in negotiations with your buyer or your seller, you may be in negotiations for 5 to 6 days, and then you give us your contract, and you have 30 days on that original date that you put for when you'd like to close. Now we're down to 25 days because you've been in negotiations for 5 or 6 days. So it's one of the things with the contract, try and remember that. Try and remember to at least allow us 30 days after we get the contract. That just things, if we have to speed it and hurry on things, sometimes things get missed and mistakes get made. When you get us a contract, make sure that you get us all the pages. Sometimes pages get left out, and sometimes signatures get missed. Page 8 is notorious for sometimes we don't get the seller's signature on that page or the listing licensee's signature on that page. So try and just glance at that if you could before you send it on to us. Send it to us as soon as you can. What we do is within 3 days of getting the contract, we, by law, have to disclose to our borrower and have it delivered to them. So time is of the essence for all of us.
What's delivered, I'm sorry? What's delivered to the borrower?
Our loan disclosures.
Oh, okay.
Which is, all the paperwork is how we're going to proceed with the loan. So as they've gone into contract with you, you give us the contract, that's how we're doing the loan, based on the sales agreement you've come to, the sales price, the closing costs breakdown, deadlines, how their names are entitled, whatever. That's, we're going to proceed with it. That way we have to deliver it to the borrower, and what I tell them is, this is how we're going, this is what you're, make sure that this is your same expectation, and then they need to get it back to us as soon as possible. But once I get that contract and I input it into our system and I push that button, we send our files to processing. So they jump in and then that's when they start working on it. So a fully executed contract, we don't want the bill of sale, so try and pull that. If not, Chris and I'll pull those bill of sales before we send it on to processing. Make sure all the signatures are on there. The least amount of times you have to go back to your buyer or your seller for a signature. We're trying to save you a little bit of grief. One of the things is make sure that you've got, Kathy, would you want to have those laminated, those right there. If you also can make sure that you glance at, do all of y'all have one of these? This is a breakdown of who pays what closing costs for each loan program.
No, I don't have.
Okay, well, I'll let you pass them around if you want to take them. Make sure you've got those boxes checked correctly on there. If you have a question, just call one of us and ask us where it needs to be marked. Again, that's one less time you have to go back. And I got one in the other day. It's a VA loan. They marked the closing fee on the buyer's side, and the buyer can't on the VA. So I had to, call the realtor and ask her to please do an addendum. So just try and at least hassle for all of us if we can, in the very beginning with that contract, make sure it's fully executed. Any questions on that, Ernestman? Purchase and sale? Okay.
Kelly, I have a question. Since time is of the essence, and it could take several extra days even to get the other realtor to sign his portion of the contract, you still want us to give you everything we have?
I
anyway?
would.
Yeah. In other words, don't wait till it's perfect.
Don't wait till it's perfect. We can start, working on it. I'd like to get a cost sheet to my borrowers ahead of time and say, hey, is this what you're expecting? Is this what you're thinking? Is this what you want to do before I actually push the button too? So, I can start working on it, especially if I don't have anything to do, if I don't have anything to do. We're sitting there and we, can start working on the file and getting it ready for processing if I know it's coming. Okay. One of the big things that can help us, and I've dealt with this over years and years, is when you are taking a listing, try to have discussion with your seller that he is going to be asked for upfront expense money. There's been times in my career where I've had to call up a seller for a check, an appraisal check, and he didn't know anything about it. And then they get upset, and I feel really bad because it's not my responsibility to tell them that that was an expected expense. Of course, it depends on how you've written your contract. But try to remember to talk to them that they're going to be asked for appraisal funds if they're paying for it. The resale certificate. The resale certificate and the appraisal can be almost $1,000. Just if you don't postpone the inevitable about not telling them in the beginning, it's not a surprise later on down the road when it's 2 weeks from ordering the appraisal and you hit them with that amount. Yes, ma'am.
Well, what if the seller just doesn't have any money? How does that dealt with?
Well, that's a good question. They could put it on credit card if they want to. In the past, there's what we used to call a letter of guarantee, that if he really doesn't have the money, I don't know, I've never really, in 19 years, I've never had a seller not really have any money. But the options are, yes, please.
Let me help with that. I'm sorry. First of all, Gabe says the letter of guarantee is a violation of the purchase and sale agreement. And what Kelly was saying is the letter of guarantee is if you're the listing realtor and your seller doesn't have money for the appraisal, yet he agreed to front the money for the appraisal, the letter of guarantee is that you as the realtor say,
not to worry, I'll pay for it if he doesn't. And we don't want to do that.
Okay.
That's not our job, and Dave said that's not in keeping with the terms and conditions of the purchase and sale agreement, which clearly speak to real funds to get that appraisal order. But if you are doing a net sheet for your seller when you take a listing, and we all are because we discussed that last week, that net sheet will identify to the seller his normal cost to sell. There's going to be the fee, also the commission to Jack White, but all the other normal seller's cost, appraisal, resale certificate, half of the doc prep fee, a title policy, and if you presented that to him at the time you took the listing, make him sign it, give him a copy of it, you'll know that day if he doesn't have money for the appraisal. If he says, I'm sorry, Kathy, this is all well and good, but when it comes, the reason I'm selling is I don't have any money, then what you have to negotiate for him is to have the buyer pay for the appraisal, or the buyer pay for the resale certificate, to be reimbursed perhaps at closing.
Oh, that's.
And
you
it
can do that.
is up to the lender. If the lender wants to order the appraisal without appraisal funds, they probably could do so. It's a gamble, and our company policy is we need to have the appraisal funds. Because what happens is anything can happen between that time and closing. If we file DFTs, we still have to pay the appraiser. So it's just pretty much anymore, we need to have the appraisal funds.
I really don't know a lender that will order the appraisal without the funds. The only possible one is Wells Fargo. And if it's a relocation client, that relocation, it's probably a Wells Fargo out of state. The relocation client has having that appraisal paid for by the company. That would be the rare time that your seller won't have to pay for an appraisal, but you can't count on that. You still have to prepare them for worst case scenario.
And, in different parts of the country, the buyer pays for the appraisal. It's a negotiation.
It is
how you
negotiable on
want
most
to go
loan
into
types.
your contract.
Kelly,
Yes.
could you clarify what we need a resale certificate for and don't need one for?
When it's a condominium, there will be a resale certificate that it needs to be provided, and Kathy jump in anytime you want to hear, to the buyer. And in the resale certificate, he reviews the covenants, the restrictions, the dues, the budget minutes. He has all that presented to him. Say if he's got 3 dogs and the association only allows 2.
So it's just for condo, though?
No.
HOAs.
Anything with
Condos
an
and
HOA.
homeowners.
Yeah,
Okay.
and not all associations are going to have a resale certificate. There might be somebody up on the hillside that has a homeowners association, but they don't actually provide a resale certificate. We take that resale certificate and we get it to the appraiser. And he's got to review it. And one of the things he reviews in there is the budget and the reserves. That's really important.
Kelly, I have a
So-
question. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So how could a homeowners association not have a resale certificate? Because if they meet, and if they are an actual association, and they have budgets, and they have minutes, and they have all that, they have to have that.
Well, it's you, the homeowners, that have gotten together to decide to create a homeowners association.
Right, and what I'm
Okay.
saying is because when I used to manage associations, one of them, I guess there is some kind of a, can't remember the exact number, but if the dues are less than $30 a month or something like that, then the realtor doesn't have to tell you or get you a resale certificate.
That would be a Catholic question.
So, but the reason why they were having trouble, they ended up making a sign at the entrance of the place that says, if you purchase in this place, there are restrictions, because people were purchasing and not getting that resale certificate, and they were having their motor homes or whatever.
You know, that's true. Turnigan View, I've seen that sign in Turnigan View, a really nice South Anchorage neighborhood, high-end houses. I've seen that sign in there.
They don't have covenants set up in there?
On rare occasion, we have run across condos, situations where there was a homeowners association that's now defunct.
Right. that
And they
can
don't meet anymore, but there was an HOA, so they're no longer a dues being collected. A little unusual, and I suspect that makes it a little harder to finance, too. Yeah, we've
I
seen-
think if they're under $200 a year,
So there
we
is-
don't have to, we don't ask for one or require that one be presented to us.
But
The
as
dues.
but as a realtor, you know, if we have our buyers, we really should make sure, because, you know, some buyers were in a pretty bad situation. They were expecting one thing and got another, so.
That would be a really big deal. I'm going to suggest also, the thing about a resale certificate that tends to kill transactions the most is, number one, if the association is being poorly managed and they don't have enough in the reserves for roof replacement or normal repairs, and that will kill your transaction the quickest. The other one is, my buyer has 3 dogs, but the association only allows 2. And so if you have buyers that have pets, and those pets are as important as life and death to them, and most times it is, and you ask that question, when you're selling condos, ask them if they have pets, because there will typically be pet restrictions. And so before we even show the property, we may call the association and say, what are the restrictions on pets? If it's 2, we don't show the property. If they have 3. So
And that's really good, Kathy, because I've had deals fall through after they've gone in contract, everybody's excited, and they get the resale certificate within, what, 15 days?
resale has to show up with, well, within, the contract now just says like right away. We build into our contracts 12 days to receive it. However, the association by law is supposed to release it in 10 days. But if the association drags their feet and it doesn't happen, you really can't beat the seller up for that.
Does the listing agent order that, or does
We make the
listing
seller order it. We make the seller order it, because it has to be paid for up front.
Okay.
So that's one of those upfront fees we prepare them for, and we tell our seller to order it. But we do it immediately.
So the appraisal and the resale so far, 2 things you need to ask them for.
The other thing about the resale, I want to add this too, because this was still new information to me. Now, we talked about this about a month ago, but I learned from Gabe, because we had a situation where this came up. If you are the listing realtor and you've had a condo listing sell, you need to remember that the buyer can back out of that contract with return of earnest money, legitimately get out of it until they get the resale certificate.
I've had 2.
Yeah, I've had one.
And the 5 days.
And plus, and then once they get it, they have 5 days by statute to review that. But if you don't get that, if on the 3rd day that you're in contract, you haven't provided a resale certificate, that buyer can legitimately get out of the contract. And that was new information to me from Gabe about 2 months ago. So please don't forget that. So it's really incumbent upon your seller to get that resale certificate in the hands of the buyer as soon as possible.
Can I say one other thing about resale? Sorry, Kelly, but when you guys get them, we're not, as a lender, we're not allowed to keep them in our office. So you guys, when you bring them to us, we can make copies of what we need out of them, and then we're supposed to hand it back to you guys. So we can't just drop them off at the front desk and leave them, because by law, you guys are supposed to deliver them, or the buyer's licensee is supposed to deliver them to the buyer. Because Gabe taught me that lesson too 2 months ago. So
What we need out of it is the budget, the minutes, and the insurance. And we also need kind of the cover page that shows who the association is and how much their dues are. So what Chris is talking about, you've got this great big resale certificate. A lot of people try and bring it into our office, drop it off, and have the buyer come and pick it up from us, and we can't do that. We'll be happy to pull the copies out, because that's what we need to get over to the appraiser.
What we normally do, because the clock is ticking with the buyers, we give it to the buyer first and tell the buyer to communicate with Kelly or Chris and deliver whatever they need. So we put that back on the buyer.
If you are the listing agent or listing licensee, and you have a condo up for sale, is that resale certificate something that you could pre-order even before you go to contract?
You really wouldn't want to, because it has to be very up to date when it's delivered to the new buyer with minutes. If they meet monthly and you've ordered it 2 months in advance, it won't be timely. So it sounds like a great idea, but it's not the right idea.
Are they $200 to $300?
They can be up to 300, yeah.
But what I usually quote is $250. And to back up a little bit about the seller's net sheet, what Kathy was talking about, we can do seller's net sheets for you if that helps. I think we talked about that in class before.
Speaking of your net sheet, don't forget to add the home warranty cost to it as well. If you are offering home warranties, be sure and build that warranty into the net sheet. And if you have, and if your seller declines the warranty, what should you do? Anybody? in writing? Get it in writing. And what we do on listing presentations is we take a completed warranty application and a warranty brochure, and if the seller, even at the time of the listing, wants to think about it, or they decline it, I have them sign a waiver right then, because I don't want them mad at me if a warranty would have covered the repairs that ultimately they had to do on their property. So build your warranty costs into that net sheet as well, but if they won't take a warranty, have them waive it right away. And as we work with buyers, same thing. If the buyer doesn't want the warranty, they sign a waiver. And I actually put that waiver in the contract. So the world knows I offered it and buyer declined it.
So the seller can use his home warranty for home inspection repairs?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Which brings up the next thing, repairs. If, being a new licensee, you might not have the knowledge yet to be able to walk into a house that you're about to list and see what things might need to be, you know what, you need to do this, you need to do this, I would suggest doing this. So advise them that after the appraisal comes in, the lender may require some repairs to be done that show up on the appraisal. So just kind of pre-warn them, and I usually build about $2,000 in just with, if I'm sitting with somebody playing with numbers, about $2,000 for what might be expected repairs. Again, the reason I'm sharing this with you is to save you some heartache, and so when these things come up later on, and the seller's a little worked up, and now you're having to bring this up and pop this information to him when it could have just been done in the very beginning. So discuss with him about repairs the lender may call for, and once those are done, we'll get into that later, once those are done, we'll have to prove that they've been done. Closing delays. Try to have that discussion with them. I've had a lot of times people think we're closing on April 30th, and they expect to close on April 30th, and they've got the movers there, they've got their plane that night, their plane ticket that night. And in a perfect world, we'd love for that to happen, but just prepare them that it might not, and then it's not that we mind getting that phone call from the seller, but we don't want to have to be the one, telling that there could be a delay. And there could be many, many reasons for delays. So just, those are some of the highlights. Kelly, you can throw anything in there that
Kelly,
you might want to
what would
add.
you, in a typical new loan transaction, would you say that you want us to write in at least a 45-day closing from point of contract? Or would you want more than that?
No, now we're okay with even 30. I would
Oh,
say
wow.
minimum of 30 days once I have we have that contract in hand.
Keep in mind, though, with what she's saying, if your buyer is going to do inspections, and most buyers will, whether Kelly's involved in that process or not, it's going to take time to get the inspections done, get the report back to you, negotiate on repairs with a repair amendment, and unless it's a brand new home or it's a cash transaction, I think you're well advised to build in about 45 days because of that whole 1 or 2 week period for inspections, repairs, negotiation, and then you order the appraisal. How long does it take the appraisers on average to get in?
They're all different.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will say on a VA appraisal, they're taking forever. They're taking like 10 to 12 days, business days. And
To
then
get to the house?
To actually
Turn it
get it
around?
back to us.
Okay.
And then it's another 2 days before we get the actual appraisal too. So it's 10 to 15 days on VA appraisals right now.
And
I
each
thought
one's
VA
different.
was allowed 21 days.
No. It used to be, back in the olden days, Brad, it was 10.
Yeah, but I thought
I don't remember the last time anybody ever held anybody to that.
Right, but I thought they said that they were expecting 21 days.
Each appraiser is different. They all work differently. Some will go out and do the inspection the minute they get the order, but may not have the actual report delivered to you for 2 weeks. Some might wait, 14 days to do it, go out and do the inspection and have the report to you the next day. So each one of them are different. And I don't know what the ramifications are to an appraiser if they don't have it delivered within the timely manner. I've never seen anybody enforce it, but it's supposed to be a deadline on that.
Our loan, the VA was done in like 4 days.
I was gonna say, I haven't had any delays at all. I had one done on Friday, had the report on Monday. So each one of them are different. Talk to them. We can't talk to them, but you call them up and talk to them.
That reminds me, Kelly, of a question. Once we know, because we're gonna know who the appraiser is, and Kelly won't, or Chris won't, and we're gonna know when that appraiser's gonna go in, is it of value to you for us to let you know who the appraiser is
Oh,
and when they will go in the door?
We'll know when it's assigned to it. We know who it's assigned to.
Okay.
They don't necessarily, nobody, I haven't had an appraiser ever notify me, hey, I'm gonna go do the inspection on Friday. It's great if you guys wanted to tell us that,
Is
because
that
then we
important
could.
to you, though?
Yes, because then we can help follow up, in my opinion. We can help follow up on turn times.
Yeah, what we get back from the appraisal desk, they usually say, we'll have it delivered by a certain date. They give a timeline to the appraisal desk on that. We could go on and on about appraisals. So I think that, again, these things I'm talking to you about, one other one is find out, if you can, it's not all on you, it's on us sometimes too, is if their spouse is going to be present at closing. So maybe both of them are going to be on the loan, or one of them's not going to be there, or only one of them is going to be on the loan, the other spouse needs to sign some paperwork, okay? And so he's aware that his spouse is buying a property. So kind of find out, again, as time goes on, we'll find that out too, but if you know that they're going to be gone and we need to send sellers docs to the lower 48, try and keep us abreast on that. Just that good communication, whatever you want to share with us. You can't ever tell us too much information. Again, it's just to try and help us all meet y'all's deadlines. Okay, power of attorney would be another one. A power of attorney if one of the parties is, and we see a lot of it with military. He's been deployed. If you know of that, try and let us know. I had a guy call me yesterday and he did a power of attorney with VA, not with the title company. And so we need it to be specific to the property the majority of time. With VA, I might be able to let this one slip through, but the majority of times, power of attorney, if one of them is not going to be present to sign paperwork, we need to have it executed correctly by the title company and specific to that property.
I'm going to add here, under 3, every other buyer or seller I talk to, I'll mention a power of attorney or a specific power of attorney. Oh, I've got a power of attorney. What they always have is a general power of attorney, which has nothing to do with real estate. So you'll say that's all well and good, but we're really going to need to get you a specific power of attorney. Kelly mentioned the word specific to the property. And I usually ask the title company to help us with that, the name title company on the contract. So the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. But the general power of attorney is not going to hold any water.
No. Now, my young man that's already deployed overseas, they didn't tell me he was leaving. They said he's going to be back in April. Well, that changed and he's got deployed. I don't know what I'm going to do because he's not going to be here for the beginning signing or the end signing. And on a VA loan, if a buyer's on a loan, he's got to physically sign either the first set or the last set. I mean, think about it. He's got to really know that he's buying a house, So
You can't doctor sign?
I don't know what we're going to do. I haven't reached that bridge yet.
You may have to fly in order to do this.
He is in Africa.
Okay.
I have not been to Africa.
I'll go to Africa for you.
Go with me.
That's called a business vacation.
Exactly,
Sorry.
tax write-off, man,
I'm
I'd be
hunting
there.
for my borrower. Any other questions on that? Kathy, you might jump in here. You can sign with the power of attorney at when you're writing your purchase and sales agreement. Just don't forget to tell us, please, that one is going to be present in the transaction.
And the title company needs to know that too.
And the sooner you tell us these things, we've got 28 days to worry about it instead of the day before closing. Now we're scrambling. My goal as an originator is meeting you guys' deadlines. That is one of my most important, one of my own personal goals. Okay, number 4. Please remember to get us all addendums or amendments to your contract. Sometimes something may come up later on, and the majority of the time it's the repair addendum. Kathy, am I saying that right? Addendum?
It should be an amendment.
A repair amendment. and you sometimes forget to get them to us. We had a situation which worked for my buyer, her favor yesterday, but title got $1,000. They went into contract for the seller to give the buyer another $1,000, and we didn't know. And so actually my buyer had to come in with $1,000 less after she already had a cashier's check, but they forgot to give it to us. So when you write that addendum, you write the amendment and an extension. If we know we're going to go into the extension, I have to have all those things for my underwriting, okay? And we have to see that. You guys are still in contract. If the contract's expired, underwriting's to say, you know, how do we know we've really got a deal if you're not in contract anymore?
Another horror story to add to that, the necessity of delivering amendments and addenda to the loan originator is, let's just say you have a sale of $250,000, and because of negotiations on repairs or whatever, the sales price goes up $5,000. So now the real sales price between seller and buyer is $255,000. Kelly thinks it's $250,000 because you didn't give her the amendment. Therefore, the appraiser thinks it's $250,000. So the appraiser appraises a home for $250,000, but the parties were at $255,000. That's a horrible situation because now the buyer's got to pay that extra $5,000 to make it work. And I've known a couple realtors that have had to pitch in some money to make that work. So, wow, just get all the amendments to Kelly. And I also like them to go to the title company
Yes.
right away as well.
Please, yeah, get them to either one of us, because then we try and make sure each other has them if we know about them. Kathy brought up a really good point. That's an exact thing that can happen, and I have to redisclose then to my borrower that there's been what we call a changed circumstance. I have to wait a certain period of time if the annual percentage rate changed from my initial loan disclosures to this new changed circumstance. I have to wait. I believe it's 3 full business days before we can re-sign the borrowers. So that would be one of the things that could, when we talked about delay of closing, that could be one of the things that caused the delay. We didn't get that addendum. I have to redraw docs. I have to go back to underwriting. I have to present the new disclosures to the borrower. He has to sign them and get them back to me. And if the annual percentage rate changed, and if obviously if the sales price went up, it's going to. If it changes more than 1/8%, we have to wait. So.
And by the way, when Kelly refers to disclosures, she's talking about loan disclosures, not to be confused with our property disclosures, by the way.
Our loan disclosures are our documents. It's a good point, is the loan application, all the FHA or VA forms that go along with it, how we're proceeding with the loan, all our loan paperwork is what I'm referring to when I talk about disclosures. And there's a bunch of them these days, more than in the past. Home inspection. Okay, I don't have to have a home inspection for all loans. Okay? If it is an ERLIB, which is an Alaska housing, we should probably talk about that. Well, actually, I'm going to teach that in a class on Tuesday, next Wednesday a little bit. But if it's an ERLIB through Alaska housing, I don't have to have the inspection, or your neighbor works or cooking, they have to have a home inspection. But most other programs, it's not required by the lender to have one. Do I think there should be one? Absolutely. But how deep do we want to get?
I do have a question. I've been waiting for this one. Okay, so, because we had this with someone that was buying a house and they were buying it as is.
Which doesn't mean a hill of beans to me.
I know, because then they they gotta fix this and that. So if I go on a house and you're lending me the money, but I'm gonna buy this house, you're gonna lend me the money, then the lender's like, they wanna make sure that it's not gonna fall down if they're gonna give me all this money, and then it falls down, then I'm like, I ain't paying for it, it doesn't exist anymore. And you're like, yeah, but I still gave it to you. You know what I mean? So they wanna make sure it's safe and all that. If I don't do an inspection, have an inspection done, how do you know that?
That's a good question.
You're gonna get some of it from the appraiser, but not.
The appraiser will call for health and safety issues.
Okay, so then that's all you're gonna care about. Okay.
Now, I have had on occasion, my underwriter if she sees the home inspection and it's not on the appraiser, she'll call for it to be done. And, you know, I tell Catherine when we talk about this, you always have to remember it's in the best interest of the buyer. But the home inspection, if you're not gonna give it to me, don't let me know about it. Do not put it anywhere on a repair addendum. Do not bring it up in a
Conversation.
or
an email.
or an amendment or an addendum. I don't want to know about it. Once it is anywhere present that I see, then I have to have it. And you ask, why wouldn't we want to have it? Well, maybe I've had a situation where the deck was falling down. And the guy who's an engineer, he's putting a brand new deck on come spring. And why would this, you know, it was dilapidated. There were things that were, you know, they called a health and safety issue for it. Well, he didn't want to go in and do the repairs on it. It was unnecessary money expense, right?
You mean the seller didn't?
Well, the buyer didn't want the seller to have that expense. And the seller said, well, you know, maybe I'll just fix what I have to, which might be this one board when you walk out. I don't remember the particulars on it. But what we did is we actually had a fix to that. And we did get involved on it, but what they did is they completely nailed and screwed the door shut so you couldn't get out onto the deck from the house, and at the very bottom where the entrance was to the deck, they completely sealed it up. So now it wasn't a health and safety issue. Now, that was 2 years ago. Things could be a little bit different. But see, what I'm saying was if you know that guy's gonna turn around and do a brand new deck, and that might be the only thing on the inspection, and you don't want me to enforce it, then don't give it to us.
Do we need to go any deeper in that? Does anybody want to
Okay,
talk about that
cool.
more?
Because we could talk about that forever. So just get it to me if you're gonna get it to me. Get it to me because the appraiser does need it, okay? Cash required at closing. This is a conversation you could have, although I don't feel it's your responsibility to do this, it's my responsibility, but again, if we work together on this, funds to close, we're a good fund state, which means that we actually have to have real money at closing, so a personal check won't work. A check from Edward Jones that's gonna take 5 days to cash. We have to have a cashier's check drawn on a local bank at closing. So if monies need to be wired, and you are probably gonna see the bank statements, although if you're sharp enough, you're gonna see that earnest money check, and on the earnest money check, you're gonna see where the bank is. You look down and it's, you know, North Star Bank out of Philadelphia. We might have this little conversation and just say, hey, we need to make sure that we remember to tell the buyer, or your buyer, my borrower, to get his funds in one place before closing.
And if you do have a buyer with an out-of-state bank or a Edward Jones bank account, have early in the transaction, have your buyer and the title company communicate, because they can have funds wired directly to the
Yes.
title company, and that money can therefore sit and become good funds while you're waiting for the loan.
Wiring's an awesome way to do it, because then it's clean. Question comes up with how accurate can you be at that point to be able to wire the money ahead of time? Well, I'm pretty darn close, and I'll always throw a little bit more in there just to kind of pad it just a little bit so there's not a shortage. But your originator, hopefully one of us at home state, should be able to get pretty darn close to that. What I do is when I get ready to go to closing and I get the HUD, I get out my original cost that I told them it was gonna be, and I compare the two. So I'm pretty close most of the time, and oh, by the way, we saved, Matt, $87.43.
It gets better every time you tell me.
I just
That's a
remembered.
month.
That's a month.
For a young
Yes.
couple, that's everything.
So yes, again, that's not your responsibility to do. It's kind of like homeowner's insurance. I didn't put this on here. You can kind of be my back support. We need them to get their homeowner's insurance lined up before closing. You can kind of just put that little bug in their ear too. We need to have that in place before we go to underwriting, because underwriting wants to see that they're sufficient on their income. Did you have a question, Bert?
Yeah, cashier's check on local bank. If, for instance, Wells Fargo is a local bank.
Yep.
If they are a Wells Fargo person out of state and they're banking out of state, if they can still draw on the Wells Fargo,
Yep.
that's going to be good enough as a
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. After the repairs are done, please let us know. Kathy put in.
These are Linda required repairs.
Yep. Because we have to send out the appraiser again to do the final inspection. Not only we have to do final inspection, now we have to have photos along with it. Then we might have some repair bills that we need to also have. Those have to be on the HUD settlement statement anymore, as does the survey. So if a survey has been ordered, and there's a repair, if you're the listing licensee and there's this survey bill, please remember to get that to us too. Okay? It has to be on the HUD settlement statement. Preliminary title report. As a favor to yourself, take the responsibility and read it. I will read it, you will read it. I was talking to somebody the other day that the seller had to bring $30,000 to the closing table, and nobody took their closing. The licensee didn't read the preliminary contract.
Do we know if the seller even knew that?
The seller,
Hoping it would go away.
I can't answer that, Kathy, I don't know, but he was scrambling that morning trying to find $30,000. And so what's on the preliminary contract, preliminary title report, is that it's going to show if there's any liens against the person, if they've got, say, back child support, if they're have any judgments, it'll say if there's unsatisfied judgments on there, and what their liens are. They may have a first and a second, and by golly, you should look at that, because with this $30,000, guess who didn't get paid? Well, none of them closed, but you didn't get your commission because there was no money to pay you. So it's kind of a big thing to read. You don't have to read the whole thing. It's what Kathy, within the first 4 pages.
Yeah, I would say, and the other thing too, you'll find that there'll be some listing licensees that think it's okay not to order a preliminary title commitment until everyone's in agreement on inspections. That's not what the contract says. The purchase and sale agreement says it's to be ordered immediately, as soon as you're in contract. So if you're a listing licensee, order the prelim right away, and worst case, that might cost your seller a little bit of money, although the title companies usually don't charge for that. Or if you're not the listing realtor, what we do is we take a copy of the contract, we send it to Kelly, we send it to title right away, and what I say, to be kind, is ask title company to coordinate with the listing realtor to get authorization to open title. And once you put the listing realtor on this, and now I say per the purchase and sale agreement, so once you put the listing licensee on notice that you're watching, they usually get them ordered. Most of them will order right away, but every now and then there's some that won't for what they think is a good reason, and it's contradictory to the contract.
And it's just to save you some heartache.
Yeah, and do your job for your seller and your buyer.
Just, I get it at the same time that you do, but I'm, just more thinking about you guys and having, the sooner you get these things, like Kathy said, the less everybody's gonna have to scramble right before closing. And again, that's one of those discussions I have with the seller, what could be some delays, okay? Once we give you the green light, hey, we're good to go, I usually send out a note, we're in closing, or docs have been sent to title, then you're free at that point, or a little before that, to make your closing appointment for signing paperwork. If you don't tell me why that's important, is if you don't tell me, I can't let my closer know, and my closer is built in the days of interest. So if we think we're closing on Friday and now we're not closing till next Tuesday and y'all forgot to tell us, I've got a couple more days of interest that I need to rework in the HUD because we need to have that accurate date. And she needs to have first payment due date and so on when she's plugging in numbers. If we kick it into the next month, there may be not only more days of interest that we have to collect, but their first payment date's gonna change. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay.
Kelly, if the deal falls apart, you also want to be told. Sometimes the poor lender's the last person to know that everybody decided they didn't like each other anymore and the deal falls apart. And sometimes you all don't know that, so I suppose you need to get the bad news.
That would be nice. Yeah, especially especially if it's, progressing pretty fast and, we're headed to closing and we've got people involved. And the mandatory clause in your purchase and sales agreement, this came from processing. Try to remember when you're writing that number in there, actually write the physical sales price in there, not either to be determined or a lot of them write the word sales price. Yes.
What if there's an amendment changing the sales price? Do we have to do another FHA amendment?
Probably does print out, Lisa, because I would have to redisclose, and that may be one of the documents that is, I just push the button and, I probably that's one of them that would change if it's an FHA loan. Yeah. Any questions? Those are some of the things that, I could just kind of come up with that might help us work together for a smooth and transaction that people don't get upset and, it's timely and.
It's like you have to have a doctorate to be a loan officer. Jesus Christ.
No, just experience more than anything, I think.
There's a lot of moving parts in a transaction.
So how long
When
is an
it's your
appraisal
hands.
good for?
Appraisal is good for 6 months.
6 months, okay.
The funny things about the appraisals, though, is depending on the program, whether you can reuse an appraisal or not.
Okay. Same with an inspection? Say the seller pays for the inspection?
Well, the inspection becomes part of that home now, right, Kathy?
Yes.
It
Okay.
belongs to
Inspection
the
report
home.
follows the history of the property.
Okay, that's all right. Okay.
But if they
It's
want
supposed
to.
to.
No,
If
it,
they wanted
yeah,
to.
but I mean, it's supposed to, be part of it. You might go into contract and the house has been listed a couple times or maybe 2 or 3 home inspections.
Oh, yeah. I've had 50-page disclosures sometimes.
You did good.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Y'all got something out of that.
Oh, tons.
I didn't get my email out today.